I ended up finding a business partner. And then in August of 2020, after I graduated Siena, I ended up buying my first multifamily property using the BRRRR method here in upstate New York, and then scaled it up to where I am today. And this upcoming week, we're supposed to be closing on 6 more units, which will put me at 45 rental units owned as a 24-year-old. I've been through more loss than an average 50-year-old. I lost my sister 2 years after my mom. So I credit that loss as motivation for me to be hungry and driven at my age. And I'd say that if it wasn't for those times, I don't know if you and I would be sitting here right now talking about all my success that I've had. I could have felt sorry for myself and did nothing with my life, or use that as an excuse as to why I didn't exceed in life. But I did the opposite and said, all right, I'm going to live each day like it's my last. I know my mom would be proud to see me and my sister would be proud to see me where I am today. And they'd want me to work as hard as possible. And I much rather take on risk early on than later on in life. And my goal is to be able to have that financial freedom ultimately. So when I'm in my 30s or 40s and I have kids or whatever it is, I want to be able to spend as much time as possible with my family, just for the simple fact that I kind of lost out on that time, with my mom and my sister not being here.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Succeed REI podcast and YouTube show. My name is Vitaly Volpov. I am your host, and I have an awesome show for you guys today where we're going to be talking all about the BRRRR strategy, and I'm going to be interviewing Giovanni Lisi, who is a young 24-year-old entrepreneur and real estate investor who is also a real estate agent inside the brokerage that I own with my business partner. In just the last few years, using the BRRRR strategy, Giovanni has been able to scale his portfolio to 45 rental units, which is pretty unbelievable and incredible. And I think that new investors should definitely pay attention to this podcast because it's going to be fire. All right, Giovanni, welcome to the show, buddy. Thanks for coming on.
I'm pumped. Look at that intro.
Woo! Absolutely. You like that? So I just, before we get into kind of the nitty gritty of what we're going to be talking about today with the BRRRR strategy and things that you've been doing, why don't you tell everyone who's joining us today who you are, what you do, what your connection is with real estate?
Yeah. So my name is Giovanni. I'm also known as the BRRRR Kid on social media, preferably on Instagram. That's kind of my main social media avenue that I've been highlighting my journey on. So those who follow along and kind of follow me on that page, you'll pretty much see the raw version of any real estate investor. I'm also a full-time real estate agent here in upstate New York. I actually work at a company called Serenity Real Estate, and I assume some of your followers know that you're one of the principal brokers that owns that company. So actually, Vitaly and his business partner Vinny are one of my mentors, and I ended up getting my real estate license when I was 19, while I was going to Siena College full-time. I was at a different brokerage at that time, doing real estate while I was going to school. So I was fortunate enough to pay for my college tuition through my proceeds of real estate, which was awesome. And then I ended up really towards my end of my senior year of college. That's when I really got connected with Vinny and Vitaly. And they basically took me under their wing and showed me everything I needed to know about investing in real estate. And that was my ultimate goal. I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a full-time realtor, or if I wanted to have a traditional 9-to-5 job, but I always knew that I wanted to invest in real estate, whether I had that 9-to-5 job or I was a full-time agent, right? And I knew that my passion was to start maybe either doing house flipping or get into multifamily properties. And I shadowed them along and looked kind of to see what they were doing, and went to a lot of their buildings that they were renovating and in the process of remodeling and doing the BRRRR method themselves. And I was fortunate enough to really be able to have the opportunity to manage their portfolio while joining their brokerage towards the end of my senior year of college, and had the opportunity to manage all their units and keep track of kind of, how they work with their contractors and how, what the average price is to renovate or remodel an apartment and how to get good quality tenants in. And then they basically said, hey, Giovanni, I think at this point you're able to kind of go out on your own and try investing yourself. And I ended up finding a business partner. And then in August of 2020, after I graduated Siena, I ended up buying my first multifamily property using the BRRRR method here in upstate New York, which was a 3-family house, and then scaled it up to where I am today. I'm now going to be 25 in May. I'm 24 right now. And this upcoming week, as we speak, hopefully, we're supposed to be closing on 6 more units, which will put me at 45 rental units owned as a 24-year-old, and also a full-time realtor, which last year in 2022, I did over $10 million in sales volume on market, another $4 million in off-market sales, which totaled over 50 transactions here in the capital region. So
You're crushing it, man. I mean, the whole story, I mean, if you guys are listening to this, I'm just like, wow, blown away. At that age, when I was that age, I was like graduating college, trying to figure out what the hell I wanted to do with my life. Had no clue about real estate, had no clue about investing, saving money, doing any of that stuff. So Giovanni's well ahead of the curve. I think it's amazing. So I just kind of along those lines, as you're telling me the story about kind of how you got started, what was your family thinking about this? Is this normal in your family? Is this something that people encouraged? Are you the first of a kind? Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so like I guess it's like kind of what made me who I am today is like my upbringing. I actually lost my mom when I was 16 to breast cancer. And my dad has been like my rock. He's been my support system. He's been through a ton of loss himself in his life. And I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for my parents. Ultimately, I wouldn't be in this position, right? They definitely took pride in me, definitely held me accountable as like a young, whether I was a teenager or whenever the age was. They made sure that I did my work promptly. They made sure I was on top of my homework and stuff like that as a student, in elementary, middle school, and high school, right? I came from, I wouldn't say it was like a crazy rich family at all. Like a middle class family. My dad, he's in the appliance industry. He's in his 60s right now. He still works. My mom was a state worker and also cut hair on the side. So like I didn't come from, parents that were executives in a corporate company, or I didn't come from a family that had real estate already. My parents owned a house, a single family house. My dad used to flip houses back in the day, mainly mobile homes, which is pretty intriguing. That's kind of how I got into real estate more, but it wasn't something that like my parents had already. And my dad, obviously from my name, I'm an Italian kid and came from an Italian household and Italian family. And my dad was like that stereotypical, like stubborn, but like stern Italian father, where he didn't want to see me take on too much crazy risk. He was pretty much calculated in every move that he made, which definitely that's how I am as an investor. But to him, buying investment properties at my age was like unheard of. So he was like super kind of not on edge about it, but he definitely wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing. And he was nervous about it at first, but now today, like, it's just like kind of second nature. I'll buy a building, I'll call him and be like, oh, you bought another one. Like, it's not even like that big of a news at this point. Like, it's kind of just, oh, like it's another one that you bought. Right. So, but yeah, I definitely say my upbringing has like made me who I am today. I wouldn't say I've been through more loss than an average 50-year-old. Ultimately, I lost my sister 2 years after my mom. So realistically, like I credit that loss as motivation for me to be hungry and driven at my age. And I'd say that like, if it wasn't for those times, I don't know if like you and I would be sitting here right now talking about all my success that I've had, because I basically fueled that loss. And basically I could have felt sorry for myself and did nothing with my life, or like use that as like an excuse as to why I didn't exceed in life. But I basically took it the opposite and said, all right, like I'm going to live each day like it's my last. I know my mom would be proud to see me and my sister would be proud to see me where I am today. And they'd want me to work as hard as possible. And I much rather take on risk early on than later on in life. And my goal is to be able to, have that financial freedom ultimately. So when I'm in my 30s or 40s and I have kids or whatever it is, like I want to be able to spend as much time as possible with my family, just for the simple fact that I kind of lost out on that time, with my mom and my sister not being here. Right. So that's kind of what fuels my fire as far as a real estate investor. And that's where my passion truly resonates from, is kind of what I've been through earlier on in life and using that as motivation to succeed.
Yeah, I think it's extremely important in any business, but especially in real estate investing, because as you and I both know, it's not easy. It's a tough thing to get into. You need to persevere. There will be hard times. It's not all roses. It's not like just what people talk about or you see on Instagram. Everyone's posting their successes. There's definitely hardships involved. And if you don't really have a strong why and a strong reason to keep going, to kind of push through those tough times, people are just not going to make it. And so the fact that you kind of have that backbone and that backing, just from the hardships that you've experienced, I think is what puts you so far ahead of so many people your age. I think, I definitely think that has helped you a lot. And, we've obviously seen your growth as you've been with us in the brokerage and kind of we've been investing together and doing deals. We've definitely seen that where we compare other 24-year-olds, not to say anything bad about others. It's totally fine and natural and normal to want to just kind of hang out, have fun, party, do things like that at that age. But at the same time, if you're able to channel what you have into productive activities like real estate investing, I think you go so much further and so much faster.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's all about your priorities in place and like what your goal is as a person. And for me, I still have fun when I can, right? I still enjoy myself as a 24-year-old, but I definitely prioritize my career and my future. And I know that my career could lead into a positive future for myself. If I put the time and effort now in my early 20s, then, have to try to catch up later on in life.
All right, well, let's get into the next segment of the show, which is getting into the lab, kind of getting into the nitty gritty of, first, we'll talk about the BRRRR strategy. We'll explain and tell people exactly what that is. Obviously, it's one of my, if not the favorite strategy, as you know, that is our primary business model and how we invest in real estate. And it is for you as well. So we'll break that down and then we'll get into one of your deals, right? We're going to talk about a recent BRRRR you completed, A to Z, including the refinance. I think that's going to be pretty cool and awesome for people to hear and see.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, Giovanni. So let's talk about the BRRRR method. What is BRRRR? What does that stand for? And what's involved in this strategy?
Yeah. So it starts off with buy, renovate, rent, refinance, and then repeat the process, right? So that's the BRRRR method ultimately. So when I go and in order to have the BRRRR method to even, get started, you really need to have access to either private money or hard money, right? And private money is either a friend, family member, close, acquaintance, whoever it is, someone who already knows, likes, and trusts you, right? A hard money lender may be a mortgage lender who has access to, cash through another investor and they charge points and it's a little bit more fee, there's a lot more fees involved, right? On that hard money aspect. But realistically, you need to have access to some cash up front. And then you need to go out and make sure that you find a piece of real estate that maybe that you can add value to, right? Because the only way for the BRRRR method to work is you need to be able to add value, whether that's raising the rents or improving the property by repairing it or remodeling it, whatever the case may be. You need to go ahead and find a really solid deal. And that could be hard to come by, especially on your local MLS, right? So for me, and I think for you as well, Vitaly, is, finding off-market deals as much as possible, right? Every deal that I've bought has been off-market. It's never seen the MLS. I think if anything goes on the MLS, it's kind of too late when it comes to the BRRRR method. As far as like any other investment, right? If you're putting 25% down or you're looking at house hack, then sure, the MLS is a great tool for you. But I think being able to network is important as an investor. And I think that's crucial with the BRRRR method. You need to be able to kind of get out there and meet the right people and find the right connections that may have access to those off-market deals, whether that's a wholesaler or a real estate professional like myself, who is in the trenches on a day-to-day basis, looking at investment properties all day long, right? And I think being able to find that network, right? So that is another tool that's like necessity when it comes to the BRRRR method. And then basically once you identify that property and you know that it's a solid building that you're able to pull your money out of, your initial investment out of, then you go ahead and purchase it, right? And then start the renovations on it, whether that's trying to move some tenants around in the building, or maybe you have to put a tenant into a new property, whether it's a friend or someone that a fellow investor that is willing to help you out and they have a renovated unit and you want to be able to take that tenant, put them in a really nice new place, then you're able to go ahead and renovate their unit. Because a lot of times these units that I purchase at least are outdated and have been lived in for many, many years and need a remodel. They need to be updated. They need to be modernized in order to get market rent. And then once you do that process and you start the renovations and you're complete on your renovations, then you take it to the next step of refinancing out. So having a local lender in your area where you do your business in your market, finding someone who's willing to and able to do a cash out refinance and give you the terms that you need in order to pull your money out, right? And we'll dive into that shortly on what that looks like as far as like how I analyze a deal and how I run my numbers. And then at that point, you pay back your private money investor, or maybe you take their funds again and you roll it into another another deal. And I call that the snowball effect, right? And that's what we've been able to do for the last 2.5 years, me and my business partner, Sean. So ultimately, that's kind of like a brief synopsis without diving too deep, in which we'll dive deeper here in a short, a few seconds once we go over those numbers.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with everything you said. And just so people understand, so it's extremely important, just like you emphasized in the beginning, that the property you find needs to have a value add upside to it. You cannot find something, even if it's off market, but you find something that's valued, or the seller's asking exactly what a market would pay for it. Like, that's not and you can't do anything to it, to whether it's adding apartments, adding bedrooms, or increasing rents because they've been under rented. If the property is 100% like current, like rents are market, you can't add anything. There's, only room for 4 apartments. That's what's in there already. Can't add any bedrooms. There's nothing you can do to it. It's not really a good BRRRR candidate in that case, because exactly the reason is, even if you're financing it with 100% private money, so you're borrowing 100%, or you're using 100% of your own money, you're not going to be able to get a refinance at 100% of its value, because banks just don't do that. We've seen maybe 85%, G? Like the high.
I'd say on average it's 80% loan to value, especially in our market. Some other markets, they don't even offer that, 75% loan to value.
Exactly.
Right? So you need to be able to make sure that you're able to pull, that 80% out of it with having that additional equity still left in the building, right? So that's important. And we can dive into, shortly how like you can analyze that and figure that out. But like if you're not able to do that, then you're just buying a traditional deal. Like, that's what it comes down to. You're buying something that, if you do refinance out, you're leaving 20% into it. And like, you could have just done that with any property at that point, right? So
exactly,
it's not scalable in my opinion, because unless you're a doctor with $2 million at hand, you might be able to buy a handful of properties with that, but you're capped out at a certain point because all your cash is spent and out there, right? So average person might be able to do 1 or 2 deals a year by just buying the traditional method. So
and doing it the way Giovanni's doing it, even at the age that he's doing it at, this is how he's able to scale. I mean, 45 units in 2.5 years, 3 years, that's pretty unheard of for conventional financing and, market purchases, putting 20% down. You're just not going to do it unless you're a millionaire already, in which case, why are you doing it exactly? you might save yourself some headaches and just,
if I bought like on average, 1 3-unit every year using traditional financing the last 2.5 years, I'd have maybe 6 units, if that, right? So definitely, I mean, it's a great way to start. Don't get me wrong, sure. But in order to scale and in order to, for me, I want to build financial freedom. I knew I had to take it to the next level. And the BRRRR method was exactly that.
Right, exactly. All right, so let's talk about the deal that you want to break down for us. I'm going to share the little summary here on screen, and then we can kind of get into and discuss that. You can give us some of the background and story on this. So let's just start with, what is this property? Obviously, people can see that it says 6 units. What exactly is this property, and how did you get into it?
So this is a deal that I bought here in upstate New York. Bought it in February of 2022, so just last year. At the time, I was 23 years old, and it was my 23rd rental unit. So I had to spin on that for a while. I kind of used that as a marketing tool across my pages, which worked. But I purchased that for $250,000. Again, it was an off-market deal. It was through our brokerage, actually. One of my teammates that I brought onto the team had access to it. And the seller, she was 96 years old. One of the units in there was condemned, which means it was uninhabitable. And there were 2 tenants in there that were not paying their rent because they were using COVID as an excuse. So basically, this person at 96 years old, there was no possible way that she would be able to get this building back to life by renovating it, getting the right people in there. She was pretty much tapped out. She was done. She just wanted to be done with the property. Her kids had no interest in inheriting it. And she was happy with getting the price point that she wanted, which at the time was, she actually wanted a little bit less, and we offered her a little bit more. And then our all-in costs on this, after our renovation and holding costs, we put probably about $100,000 in our renovation costs, right? By putting new siding on it, updated the windows. Could see in that after photo, we put new Trex decking, vinyl posts up, a brand new roof on it. And then I renovated, out of the 6 apartments, 5 out of the 6 apartments were completely renovated. And when I say completely renovated, and we'll show you some more photos here shortly after, and we can dive into that. But updated with new flooring, fresh paint, kitchens, new bathrooms, and ultimately made it a modernized, clean space for any tenant, right? So I'm able to get market value on it.
Just so people can see the before and afters, I think it's pretty
Yeah.
powerful to see that.
So those are the before and afters. Again, ugly red barn looking building on the left, and now brand new nice blue building on the right, right? Updated the landscaping on the outside, something I normally don't do, but I said we had some extra funds and it was nice out in the summertime, so we did it. I had one of my buddies from high school actually help me out before he was going to the Marine Corps, and he helped do that as some side work. Again, you can see the bathrooms clean, modernized, new vanities, new kitchen cabinets. That unit, we did some floating shelves as a different approach, modernized look, a little bit cheaper because I don't have to put upper shelving in, but the tenants like it. And
gotta love the green cabinets from before, right?
Yeah, those were crazy. So actually, that unit, those tenants, they probably smoked in there for like the last 8 years. It smelled horrific, like disgusting. And like my guys had to go through, put kills on the walls, get it back to life. A lot of air fresheners, but it smells clean, new on the inside now. That was a unit that was condemned. The bathroom looked exactly like that when I closed on it. And then there's the new bathroom to the right. So completely brand new tub surround, all new vanity, flooring, everything. That one, we ended up painting those cabinets, but turned out all right. New countertops, new flooring throughout, updated with new appliances. So again, clean, modernized look that any person would want to live in and occupy. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah, and that was using private money, and then we went ahead and refinanced out. I'll go back to this sheet, and we ended up getting the building appraised out after repair value for $525,000. So I went through a local lender, actually called Trustco Bank here in our upstate New York area. I'll give them a plug. My mortgage lender, Bill Chow, awesome guy. He's in the commercial department over there. Gave us 80% loan to value at the 525 number, which ended up being, I think, if my math serves me correctly, like right around 460. And then after our all said and done with all our closing costs and everything like that, we were able to cash out right around $45,000 after the refinance. And now after all expenses and everything on the building, after accounting for a mortgage and all those expenses, we cash flow right around $1,600 a month positive. And I split that between me and my partner. But we brought the rents from what they were, $4,200 a month, to $6,275 in the course of, this took us 6 months.
And I mean, I think this deal just exemplifies the sort of the success that someone could have with the BRRRR method. You're hitting on every single cylinder over here. Basically, you have a deal that you didn't put any of your money into. You were able to pull all the private financing, someone else's money that you used for both the purchase and the construction cost back out of it. You also were able to get an additional $45,000 as tax-free money in your pocket that you can reuse for something else or for your own personal expenses at a pretty decent interest rate at the time when you did the refi, right?
I think this one was right around 5%.
Okay. Yeah. So I mean, and rates have gone up significantly since then. But so, and you have 20% of equity still in this building, and you're cash flowing $1,600 a month. So I think for anybody who's interested in really considering doing this seriously and getting into real estate investing, personally, I don't think there is a better strategy, and I'm sure you agree with me, than the BRRRR strategy if you have some experience, right? Because talk about that little aspect a little bit, because obviously it's a lot of moving parts here. You mentioned the construction. There's got to be some headaches and some things that come along with managing all of that, right?
100%. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely trial and error over time, but my recommendation to anyone starting out as a real estate investor, period, whether it's the BRRRR method, whether it's buying your first, multifamily property, whether it's a house hack, I don't care what it is, definitely have a mentor, right? Or have someone that you can fall back on and you can talk to and learn from their mistakes, what they did right, what they did wrong. And that was you and Vinny, ultimately. You guys are my mentors. And I replicated what worked for you guys, and I also learned what you struggle with maybe on a day-to-day basis or what didn't work. And I try to implement that and how to make that better. But really, once you get, it's great, again, to have a mentor, but then you go out and do it yourself. That's one thing, right? And a lot of it sometimes is trial and error, especially with trying to find contractors, right? It may take a handful of contractors to finally find that right fit. And the same goes for maybe what you do on the inside of the units. Maybe you realize that it doesn't make much sense to rip out all the cabinets. Maybe in this unit, it makes the most sense to paint the cabinets, right? And add new hardware. So really, it's all trial and error. But I'd say having a good game plan in place as an investor is number one. And then number two is having a mentor, someone that you can fall back on that will hold you accountable and will be able to guide you along the way. And sometimes there's people out there that don't want to share their knowledge, right? But finding the right individual that is willing to maybe help you out, and in return, maybe you're helping them out, right? I definitely say, our relationship, it's one hand washes the other. I like to believe a lot of the times where, I'm doing the real estate sales aspect, bringing money into the brokerage. And then in return, I get a lot of knowledge and expertise from you guys, right? And that's why a lot of people join our team here at Serenity, is for that untapped knowledge that you'd have to pay thousands and thousands of dollars for. Where here at Serenity, it's offered for free as long as, you're an agent and you're taking a strive and interest in actually producing and being successful.
And while we're talking about the brokerage, I think it's a perfect opportunity to reference it and let people know who we are and kind of what we do. Obviously, if you're across the country, it's not something that we could represent you on or help you. But if you are looking in the capital region, which is upstate New York, you're looking for real estate investing opportunities, you're looking for properties, or if maybe you're an agent or you're thinking about becoming an agent, you want to give us a shout. This is the website. This is kind of our main page. You got our team here, and just reach out, and you guys, if you want to, wherever you're consuming this show and podcast, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can drop a comment, DM us. Obviously, Giovanni's on Instagram. So you could just reach out to us and talk to us if you have any interest in coming on board or talking to us or possibly doing some kind of business with us. I think we'd definitely be very open to that.
Absolutely. And I'm open even for investors that are not even in this local market. I have a lot of people that message me all the time on Instagram asking me for tips and tricks. And, if I have the time to message back, which most times I do, I have no problem sharing my insight and knowledge, right? A lot of that, I give out that free information because I figure definitely if I can do it, anyone can do it. Like, that's the honest truth. You just need to be able to have the right systems and the right tools in place in order to get your start. And those
Agreed.
are what we're talking about right now. So
yeah, agreed. And so let's transition now, because this is kind of a perfect segue as well. You were talking about mentors. We're talking about the way you got your mentors, which was coming to us as a real estate agent. You had your real estate license. Let's shift into our next segment, which is the overrated, underrated segment, where I basically throw out a topic to a guest, or I chime in on it myself. And I basically ask them, something, a particular fact or a statement, is it overrated or underrated relating to the real estate industry? So we're going to do that right after this little intro. All right, G. So we're talking about underrated, overrated aspects involving real estate. And specifically, I want to ask you about getting your real estate license as a real estate investor. We just talked a little bit about, the value and the importance of mentors and having people that have done something that you want to do, that you're looking to start doing, and they've already had that experience, and you want to kind of tap into it and try to work with those people. Would you say getting your real estate license is overrated or underrated, or, it's people have an equal opinion about this and it's pretty much across the middle? What would you say?
I don't know. I'd say it's pretty much across the middle, in my opinion, just for the simple fact that, what's great about having a real estate license as an investor is that you get access to a lot more things before they hit the market than anyone else would naturally, right? If you're actively producing and in the trenches and actually trying to generate business for what works for you and your clients. So granted, I have first pick sometimes on a lot of the deals that come across the board, which is awesome. I do think overall being engulfed in the industry is helpful because I already had that insight and knowledge prior to becoming a true real estate investor, right? I was already doing property management. I was already in the trenches, analyzing deals for my clients and helping them buy real estate themselves and buy investment properties. So I'd say that in itself is invaluable. But then also, you really, in order to be a real estate investor, there's a handful of successful investors that I work with in our local market that don't have the real estate license. They have over 150, 200 rental units, and they never got the real estate license. And they're happy buying deals, whether it's through other people or networking and finding, deals through wholesalers or whatever the situation may be. They've been able to make it work. I do think they've passed up on a lot of money and opportunity because not every deal truly works for them, right? So if they're analyzing a property and it's not on the market yet, they maybe have been able to sell that to another investor, whether that's through wholesaling it to someone or listing it on the MLS, which is something that we do on a day-to-day basis. If things don't work out for us, a lot of times I'll pass it off to a lot of my other investors. And if it doesn't work for me, sometimes it works for another person, right? So that's another way to generate business and income. So I guess there's no right or wrong answer to that question, but those are kind of my insight and my opinion on, neither way. Like, it's not overrated or underrated. I think it's just in the middle, but there's definitely perks by having it. And then there's also maybe perks by not having it, but also you're still able to operate as an investor without it.
I agree with that. And so I'll give you my take on it. And in this sort of varies, and it depends on a person's particular situation, right? So I think, there are some people out there who are maybe just looking to get started with real estate, and they don't have that, they don't have money, they don't have backing, they don't know how to find deals, they don't know anything about the real estate industry, but they're really interested, right? And maybe they have a job that is part-time, or maybe it doesn't bring in a lot of money, or they have some free time on the side. For that person who's just looking to break through and kind of get into it, I think it would be a pretty good idea, as long as obviously they're willing and they understand sort of the aspects that are involved in being a real estate agent, to actually go and get their real estate license. And I also think that with that, it's very important that they go to the right brokerage, right? Because if your ultimate goal is to be a real estate investor and not just be a salesperson, right? A real estate salesperson, and that's your full-time job, there's nothing wrong with that. If somebody wanted to do that, and there's plenty of people that do that as a career. Maybe they sell single-family homes, maybe they do sell some multifamily, but primarily they just want to make their money through commissions, and that's all they want to do. Then that's totally fine. But if you're a real estate investor and you want to kind of get into the industry, start rubbing elbows with other real estate investors, and learn how to invest, you really got to go to a brokerage that specializes in that thing. And
Absolutely.
You got to go to a brokerage that caters to investors, that is around investors all the time, that has agents who are investors themselves. And, obviously this may sound self-serving, but and it's not like another plug, but honestly and truly, that's what we do at our brokerage, Serenity Real Estate team. And so I think if somebody was looking for that experience and looking for that kind of a hybrid approach, I think that's a perfect opportunity for somebody. If you're already a seasoned investor, maybe you've done some deals already, you've got some private money, you've got other things going on. Okay, you don't want to bother getting your real estate license. You've got Giovanni on your in your Rolodex on your phone, contacts. You can call him up anytime and say, "Hey, gee, I'm looking for another deal. I have $200,000 ready to go. Can you find me something?" Perfect. You don't need to go out and hustle and find those deals yourself. You've got a perfect contact and person in your sphere of influence already. Just tap into them and use them. But if you're brand new and you're young and maybe you have some time and you want to learn, I think it could be a good opportunity to get your license.
Yeah, I would agree 1,000%. I guess I'm biased, but I've been in this industry for the last 6 years, especially in our market. I don't think there's any team in the capital region that does exactly what we do, and that's tailored to mainly real estate investors. I could say that with confidence because I deal with agents and other brokerages on a daily basis on transactions. And I don't think there's any team out there that truly operates the way we do and has the opportunity to grow yourself as an entrepreneur outside of being a full-time realtor, right? Sure, there's teams out there that want you to succeed as an agent, as an independent contractor, but we truly preach entrepreneurship here at Serenity and want to see people grow their portfolio ultimately. Because if someone's portfolio is growing, then we win as a team ultimately. And I think what comes down to it is, for me, that's why I made the switch to Serenity. And that is definitely again, I would not be sitting here talking to you today if I did not do that. I wouldn't have owned 45 rental units if I didn't make that switch. And engulfing yourself in that team mindset that thinks like you and has the same interests is important for you to grow as an individual.
Agreed. That's good advice, G. All right, so let's move on to the next segment. This is second to last segment of our show, which is called In the News, where I'm going to bring up a topic that's currently making the rounds in the real estate news, and we'll kind of discuss it a little bit, see how it relates to our local market and local trends and also national trends. All right, G. So we're talking about the current rounds that are going through as far as the news and the real estate industry. And one thing that I just saw the other day, I was reading the article online. It was saying that the interest rates, as you probably are aware, have last month or month and a half prior to this recording, they were going down, trending down, and then suddenly they started picking back up. And so what this article, and I'll put it up on the screen, was saying was basically that we're seeing a downturn where real estate investors as well as single-family owner-occupiers are starting to shy away from purchasing again, where there's a little bit of a kind of a break where people kind of rush back in. But now, according to this article, we have rates that are at 6.32%, now going up to 6.75%. So what is your take on this? Are you seeing any impact in our local market? And do you think that interest rates are going to continue to be kind of a thorn in both the investor side and homeowner side for the next year?
Yeah, so I've definitely seen an impact on the aspect that, believe it or not, a lot of buyers right now, it's becoming a new norm. I think they realize that this is what rates are, and they're kind of, they're used to it. And I think the one key phrase is you can marry the house, but you can date the rate, right? So like, that's very true. So like down the line, like really what's happening today, like that's the cost of doing business. Unfortunately, the rates are what they are. If you want to get into the real estate game, you're going to have to deal with it. But down the line, if interest rates drop down again, and they drop down significantly to where they were, which I don't know if it could happen again, but maybe it will, then you can refinance out, right? And you can take advantage of those lower rates at that time. Why wait and hold out in the hopes that rates drop? Like if you're doing that, then you're not going to be able to succeed in this industry. That's just the quite honest truth. Sure, you can wait, but you're going to miss out on a lot of good opportunities out there that you're probably going to kick yourself for down the line, because property values are just always going to continue to appreciate. From the standpoint of the market, there's a lack of inventory in our capital region right now, a serious lack of inventory. So when something hits the market right now, they still go for multiple offers, even with these higher interest rates, because buyers are actively buying. Well, what does that mean for a seller standpoint? Well, someone who's looking to replace that building after they sell it, it's tough for them to give up. Maybe they have a 3% interest rate right now on their loan. Maybe it was like, high 2 when things were like completely bonkers, or even if it was like 4%, they're in a position where, hey, like I'm going to sell this building. Sure, I can make a lot of money, but now I have to go ahead and replace it with something else, and I'm going to have to get stuck at a higher interest rate. I don't feel like doing that. I'm not going to sell. So that's why we're seeing a lack of inventory right now, because many people do not want to sell. Sure, you get your natural cases of death, divorce, whatever the situation may be, hard times that someone's falling on, and that's why they're listing their building, and that's where you're going to find a good deal. Yes, that can happen. But right now, naturally, our markets are at, like, here in the capital region, like the inventory is at like one of the all-time lows. Like it's hard to, like I'm dealing with a lot of buyers right now that we've been looking for the last 3 to 4 months, if not longer, and we can't find anything that's good quality, as far as good quality deals. Now, I just got back prior to this, filming this podcast with you. We had access to an off-market deal. I think if you can find an agent in your market that has access to off-market real estate, like myself, and I'm not saying that as a plug, but I do get a ton of off-market deals here in the capital region from being in the trenches. That's the person that you want to work for, because you're only competing against yourself at that point. I just showed a house, a 3-unit in our market, to someone who's looking to house hack. His name's Nick. I'll shout him out. He found me through my Instagram page, and has been following along for the last several months. And Nick has been looking for a handful of months now. We've been seeing a lot of the stuff that's been on the market. And unfortunately, like what's out there that's been sitting on the market long term is kind of crap. Like it's not really good quality at all for the price point that they're asking. And a lot of these sellers still think that they can get what they are truly like hoping for in this market, which is unfortunately not the reality when it needs a lot of work. But for him, I texted him, it was like 3 days ago, one of our agents on our team, Dee, give Dee a shout out too. She found an off-market deal, 3-unit here close by to 2 other properties I actually own. And I said, Nick, like, let's go take a look at this. I really do think it would make for an awesome owner-occupied situation for you. Today we went on the appointment, and it was just me, Nick, and Dee, and the owner. And there was no lines of people. No one else really knows about it other than maybe the other investors I pitched it to. But Nick is now having that opportunity to get this. I'd say it's a market value deal. Don't get me wrong by any means, but it's an awesome, awesome house hack for him in a solid location. It's going to appreciate over time. And he's basically going to live there for free. And for him, like that's invaluable. Like it's hard to find those types of deals. You just have to work with the right people. But ultimately right now, like for me and Nick searching, it was a tough last few months because there's no inventory and it's hard to find what someone wants. And even for myself, like for me as an investor right now, personally, it's hard for me to find good quality value add deals right now because there's not many to be had. You really have to get creative and dig deep.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on and piggyback on what you just said too. I think it's we talked a little bit about earlier in the podcast about finding those off-market deals that have value add opportunities. But if you are maybe an owner occupier, you're looking at house hack, or you maybe don't have necessarily that need to do a BRRRR or that desire to kind of go all the way and kind of hit that home run. You're happy with doing something that maybe is market, but also doesn't go into a bidding war because there are no other people competing for that particular property. It's still worth it to try to, deal with us or deal with somebody like Giovanni on an off-market deal where we can bring you that kind of a deal. You get to see it firsthand, first show, first look. No one else is there. No one else is competing with you, and you can get that deal locked up. Whereas if it was on the market, maybe it would go $20,000 over asking price. Maybe there would be a bidding war. Maybe you end up walking away all disappointed and dejected about how tough this market is, which it really is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I think one thing that I'm noticing too is, we're getting back to like pre-COVID times, like back to like how the real estate market once was, and that's not a bad thing. Like the real estate market was awesome back then still, but seasonality in our market, at least here in upstate New York and the Northeast, is a real thing when it comes to the real estate market, right? When it comes to November timeframe all the way to really like March, right? During those cold winter months, people tend to turn the off button on when it comes to thinking about selling their house, right? Which is why I think we're seeing this lack of inventory right now. Based on my years prior experience prior to COVID, like this is how the market was. Yeah, it was tend to be slower this time of year. And then the second that the warmer weather hit, March, April, whenever that could take place, May, inventory rose, right? Because people start thinking about selling their house. They can do their landscaping outside, make it look nice and pretty, do those improvements that they wanted to do in order to get on the market. So I think we're back at that normal time, because when COVID hit, the market here in our area, at least in New York State, was on pause for about a month because of, they wouldn't allow anyone to see houses, this and that. So it really kind of reset this, like there was no seasonality mode. Like it was nonstop, full throttle for the last 2.5 years.
Cool. All right. Well, let's move on to the last segment of the show. This is where we kind of give our tip of the week, and we can do that in a second. All right, G. So what I wanted to ask you as far as a tip of the week, or a tip that you can give, is if someone was trying to follow in your footsteps, right? So let's say maybe they're in college right now and they're thinking about, hey, I might want to get into real estate. I might want to do, I see people on Instagram. I see Giovanni on podcasts. He's crushing it. He's, killing it with 45 rental units that he's about to have. How do I get started? Like, where do I don't own anything right now. Maybe my parents can help out a little bit with a down payment or something like that. But someone totally green and fresh to the industry, what would you say kind of the first step or a tip you would give them starting out now?
Yeah, I mean, it really comes down to three things, right? It's educate yourself, continue to listen to podcasts like this. Maybe I call Bigger Pockets the Facebook of real estate investing. Go ahead and, follow people on Bigger Pockets, whether it's, their podcasts, whether it's read their books, whether it's people on social media. I mean, people my age love Instagram and TikTok, like Instagram Reels is a common thing. So like continue to watch those, but don't get yourself over inundated with that, because you can really get lost in the shuffle and just like I call it analysis paralysis. You'll never make that next move unless you go out and actually take an initiative with what you've learned. So by doing that, go out and network, like go to a local meetup or a networking group, or, talk with another investor that you may know of in your market, right? And pick their brain, take them to coffee, try to meet one new face. I like to say every single day, in order to grow your network, because your network is your net worth. Like that's really the honest truth. And then go ahead and maybe through that networking avenue, and I guess I have 4 things. I'm going to add another thing on here. Get a mentor, right? Get someone that you can kind of hold you accountable. You can learn from their mistakes, but learn also what they did right and mirror that image, as long as it works with kind of your game plan, because there's so many ways to invest in real estate. Not every way is the right way. And then the last thing is go out, execute, and like do it. Like, don't be afraid to go out and do it. Like once you get that knowledge and that expertise and that, having that mentor or, whatever the case may be, go out and actually implement what you've learned and your strategy and give it a shot. I guess don't sit on the sideline, like actually take that next step. Like a lot of people need that next push of encouragement. Again, if I could do it, truly anyone can do it. And that goes for anyone, not only if you're in your 20s coming out of college or you're in college right now, like you could be 50, 60, like listening to this podcast. Like it's never too late. Like I've been able to scale my portfolio in the last 2.5 years to 45 rental units using this BRRRR method. So if you're someone who's maybe later in life and you want to be able to, maybe you're still working and there's no end in sight as far as retirement, like this could be your way to retire, right? You just have to put the time and effort in. and it's never too late.
Love it, man. Awesome. That's great advice. I think this has been a great podcast and show. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed it and got value from it. If you did, please leave a like. And if you are listening to this on other platforms, leave us a review. And Giovanni, where can people find you if they want to connect with you? What's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah. So really, I like to say that I'm probably the most active on Instagram right now. So at the BRRRR Kid, you can see it right here on the screen. That's how you spell it. Basically, you can find me on Instagram, give me a follow on there. If you don't have Instagram, I do have LinkedIn, and I guess Vitaly, you could post my social media credentials maybe in the bio of this.
I will.
Also Facebook and our website, serenityrealestateteam.com. So, I mean, that's really what it comes down to is follow me along on Instagram. I definitely say that like you get the raw version of me. There's a lot of gurus out there that will post content nonstop. I mean, I don't bombard people. Your best bet is to look at my Instagram story, because if I'm posting on there, then I'm actually out busy producing, and I'll show you kind of day in the life of a real estate agent, whether it's walking my units, post-construction, pre-construction, or even during construction, and then also kind of like running my numbers on deals and analyzing new properties. So eventually I might post more like content when it comes down to the nitty gritty, but for now I'm busy selling real estate, trying to make a name for myself here in the capital region. Again, I want to hit the same numbers I did last year in 2022, over $10 million in sales volume, continue to do that until I maybe have that financial freedom, and then completely scale up a team from there. And then maybe you'll see more of me in a Grant Cardone type setting. Who knows?
There you go. Sounds good. All right, Giovanni, thanks so much for coming on. Thanks for sharing your experience and your expertise with us. It's been awesome, and we'll be talking soon.
Absolutely. Sounds good. Thank you for having me on, Vitaly.
Take care.